You are on HOA spot. I stayed calm and let her talk. I am standing in my own driveway in Seattle when Rebecca Harris walks up with a clipboard and a handheld plate scanner that she aims at my car like it is a weapon. She does not say hello, she just starts talking. This conversation is not a debate, it is a directive. Your vehicle is parked in a common area, and it will be towed within the hour if you do not move it immediately. I blink at her. I work as a warehouse inventory controller, so I track every item and timestamp down to the second, and I know exactly where my car is parked. It is in my driveway. The driveway that came with my townhouse when I bought it 6 months ago. I tell her that. She does not care. She taps her scanner against her palm and says the plat map shows this as common area and the board voted to enforce it. I ask when that vote happened. She ignores me and slaps a bright orange violation sticker on my windshield. No readable text, just a giant warning shape that screams official. I ask her to show me the plat map. She says she does not carry documents in the field. I ask her name. Rebecca Harris, Communications Director for Redwood Landing HOA Incorporated. I recognize the name from the endless email blasts I have been getting since I moved in, each one more aggressive than the last. She turns to leave, and I say I am not moving my car because it is my driveway. She stops, looks back, and smiles in a way that makes my stomach drop. Go ahead and call whoever you want. I have a committee for that. Then she walks away, phone already at her ear. My name is Dan, and I moved to this Redwood Landing neighborhood because it was affordable and close to the warehouse where I worked nights. I am supporting family back home, so every dollar counts. I cannot afford surprise fees or a tow bill, and right now I am looking at both. I pull out my phone and start taking pictures of my car, the driveway, the property line markers. I text my buddy Marcus, who is a CPA and has helped me spot red flags before. He texts back immediately. Get everything in writing. If they tow you, get the release receipt and the call log. I screenshot that and save it. Then I go inside and pull up my closing documents. The plat map in my file shows the driveway as part of my lot. Clear as day. I scan it and email it to myself, then I forward it to the HOA management company with a polite note asking for clarification. I hit send and feel a tiny bit of control return. 20 minutes later, a tow truck rolls up. Bright amber lights flashing, wheel lift already angling toward my car. I run outside. The driver is a guy in his 40s with a company logo on his shirt. I ask him who called. He shrugs. Dispatch said Redwood Landing HOA, authorized tow. I show him my closing documents on my phone. I tell him this is my property. He scratches his head and radios dispatch. I hear a woman on the other end, not Rebecca, but she says the same thing. Authorized by the board, proceed with tow. The driver looks uncomfortable, but he starts positioning the wheel lift. I am panicking now because if my car gets towed, I cannot get it back until tomorrow morning at the earliest, and I have a shift tonight. I need that car. I call the non-emergency police line. The operator says it is a civil matter and they cannot stop a contracted tow on HOA property. I feel my hands shaking. Then I hear another voice. A rideshare driver who was waiting at the curb for a pickup walks over. He has been watching the whole thing. He looks at Rebecca, who has reappeared from somewhere, and he just rolls his eyes. He says out loud, "This is ridiculous. That is clearly his driveway." Rebecca turns on him. "This does not concern you." He shrugs and says he is just saying what he sees, and he pulls out his phone and starts recording. Rebecca freezes for a second, then she tells the tow driver to proceed anyway. The driver hesitates. The rideshare guy says he is happy to be a witness if this goes to court. The tow driver radios dispatch again. There is a long pause. Then dispatch says to hold off, and they will call the HOA for confirmation. Rebecca looks furious. She starts arguing with the driver, waving a printout that I assume is the tow policy, but I cannot read any of the text on it. The driver just shakes his head and says he is not towing anything until dispatch clears it. Rebecca spins around and points her scanner at me like she is taking a mugshot. She says this is not over, and she will be back with a board resolution and a lien if necessary. Then she storms off. The tow truck leaves. I thank the rideshare driver, and he just nods and goes back to his car. I go inside, and my heart is pounding. I check my email, nothing from the management company yet. I text Marcus and tell him what happened. He calls me immediately. He says if they try to tow you again, make sure you get the tow yard claim ticket and keep everything documented. He also says to request a full copy of your account ledger from the HOA, because if they are playing games with your driveway, they might be playing games with your fees too. I thank him and hang up. Then I sit down at my kitchen table and realize I am shaking. I have never felt this targeted in my life. That evening, I get an email from the management company. It is vague. They say the board is reviewing my inquiry and they will respond within 10 business days. 10 days. Meanwhile, Rebecca can call a tow truck whenever she wants. I reply and ask for an expedited review given the immediate threat to my vehicle. No response. I go to work that night and I am distracted the whole shift. I keep checking my phone, expecting to see a notification that my car is gone. When I get home in the morning, my car is still there, but there is a red stamped final notice envelope tucked under my wiper. I open it. It is a notice of violation for unauthorized parking in a common area with a fine of $250 due in 7 days. If I do not pay, the fine doubles and the HOA can file a lien. I take pictures of the envelope, the notice, everything. I forward it all to Marcus. Marcus calls me that afternoon. He has looked at the notice and he says it smells like selective enforcement. He asks if anyone else in the neighborhood has cars in their driveways. I tell him yes, at least a dozen units. He says then they cannot single you out unless there is a legitimate reason and your plat map shows it is your property. He tells me to file a formal records request for the board meeting minutes where they allegedly voted on this, plus any enforcement logs showing how they have handled similar situations. He also says to request a copy of my account ledger and the tow authorization call log if I can get it. I sit down and draft the records request that night. I keep it polite but detailed. I list every document I want. I email it to the management company and CC the board email address that Rebecca controls. 2 days later, I get a response. It is from Rebecca. She says records requests require a processing fee of $50 and must be submitted on the official form which she has attached. The form is a PDF with about 20 fields, half of them asking for justification. I fill it out anyway, attach a check image for $50, and send it back. Then I wait. A week goes by. Nothing. I follow up. Rebecca replies that the request is being reviewed by the board attorney, and I will be notified when it is approved. I am furious. I text Marcus. He says that is a stall tactic, and if they do not respond within a reasonable time, I can file a complaint with the state. But complaints take time, and I do not have time because the fine is due in 2 days, and I still do not have the documents I need to fight it. The next morning, I wake up to my phone buzzing. A neighbor I barely know has sent me a screenshot from the neighborhood group chat. Rebecca posted a message saying that several residents have been warned about unauthorized parking and that the board has authorized a tow-on-site policy for repeat offenders. She does not name me, but everyone knows. The chat blows up. Some people agree with her, others say it is insane. One person asks if the board is enforcing this equally. Rebecca replies that enforcement is at the discretion of the board and that violations are assessed on a case-by-case basis. Translation: she is targeting whoever she wants. I screenshot the whole thread and save it. Then I get another red-stamped final notice envelope, this time with a second violation notice claiming I parked in a fire lane. I look outside. My car has not moved. There is no fire lane anywhere near my driveway. I take pictures showing the surroundings, the curb, the lack of any fire lane markings. I am documenting everything now. I decide to go to the next board meeting. It is held in the community clubhouse on a Thursday night. I show up 15 minutes early with a folder full of printed documents. The meeting room is small, maybe 20 chairs, half of them occupied. Rebecca is at the front table with 2 other board members. She sees me walk in and her expression hardens. The meeting starts. The board goes through routine business, budget updates, landscaping bids. Then they open the floor for resident comments. I raise my hand. Rebecca calls on me last, after 2 other people who ask softball questions. I stand up and I say I am here to address the parking enforcement actions taken against my property. I explain that I received 2 violation notices for parking in my own driveway, which my closing documents show as part of my lot. I asked the board to provide the meeting minutes where they voted to reclassify my driveway as common area. Rebecca does not even look at me. She says the board does not discuss individual enforcement actions in open session and that I need to submit my concerns in writing. I tell her I already did, along with a records request, and I have not received a response. She says the request is under review. I ask when I can expect a response. She says when the board attorney clears it. I feel my frustration boiling over, but I keep my voice steady. I ask if the board is enforcing this policy equally across all residents. Rebecca finally looks at me. This conversation is not a debate, it is a directive. You have been notified of the violations and the fines. If you do not comply, further action will be taken. Then she moves to the next agenda item. I sit down, shaking with anger. After the meeting, one of the other board members, an older guy named Tom, approaches me quietly. He looks uncomfortable. He says off the record he did not vote for any driveway reclassification, and he does not remember any such vote. He says Rebecca has been pushing a lot of enforcement actions lately without full board approval, and he is starting to worry about liability. He tells me to keep documenting everything and consider talking to an attorney. Then he leaves before anyone sees us talking. I go home and I email Marcus. I tell him what Tom said. Marcus replies that it sounds like Rebecca is acting outside her authority, and that could be huge if I can prove it. He says to keep pushing for the records and to start looking for an attorney who handles HOA disputes. He also says if Rebecca keeps escalating, she might make a mistake that exposes her. If you are enjoying this story, please hit the like button and subscribe for more HOA nightmare tales. The next day, I get a call from a number I do not recognize. I answer. It is a tow company different from the first one. The dispatcher says they have an authorization to tow my vehicle from Redwood Landing HOA, and they are sending a truck within the hour. I ask who authorized it. She says Rebecca Harris, Communications Director. I tell her my car is legally parked on my property, and I will file a complaint if they proceed. She puts me on hold. I hear muffled voices. Then she comes back and says they are going to send the truck anyway, and I can dispute it at the tow yard. I hang up and immediately call Marcus. He is at work, but he answers. He tells me to go outside and record everything. If they tow it, get the driver to give you the claim ticket and ask for the authorization paperwork. He says do not sign anything and do not pay anything until we can review it. I grab my phone and run outside. The tow truck is already there, different company, same wheel lift setup. The driver is younger this time, maybe mid-20s. I walk up and ask him to show me the authorization. He pulls out a printed form. I take a picture of it. The form lists my address and vehicle description, and it is signed by Rebecca Harris. I point out that my car is on private property and ask if he verified the authorization with the property owner. He shrugs and says he just does what dispatch tells him. I tell him I am the property owner and I do not authorize this tow. He radios dispatch. The same woman answers and she says the authorization is valid and to proceed. I tell him I am recording this and I will hold the company liable. He hesitates. Then Rebecca shows up. Rebecca walks right up to the driver and tells him to hook up the vehicle immediately. I step between her and my car. I say I am not moving and I am recording everything. She points her scanner at me. You are obstructing a lawful tow and I will have the police remove you if necessary. I tell her to call them. She pulls out her phone and dials. I hear her say she needs police assistance for someone interfering with HOA enforcement. The driver looks like he wants to be anywhere else. I keep recording. Then Marcus calls me. He is on his lunch break and he has been tracking my location. He says he is 5 minutes away and to stall as long as I can. I tell Rebecca I am not obstructing anything. I am standing on my own property. She says the board has classified this as common area and I am trespassing. I almost laugh. Trespassing on my own driveway. The absurdity of it is overwhelming. The driver radios dispatch again and says the situation is escalating and he is not comfortable proceeding without police on scene. Dispatch tells him to wait. Rebecca is furious. She starts yelling at the driver, calling him incompetent, and saying she will report his company for refusing a valid contract. The driver just crosses his arms and says he is not moving until the police arrive or dispatch tells him to leave. A patrol car shows up about 10 minutes later. The officer gets out and asks what is going on. Rebecca immediately launches into a speech about unauthorized parking and HOA enforcement. I wait until she finishes, then I show the officer my phone with my closing documents, the plat map, and the photos I have taken. I explain that this is my driveway, and I have received no legitimate notice of any reclassification. The officer looks at Rebecca and asks if the HOA has a court order or any legal documentation showing ownership of the driveway. Rebecca says the board voted on it. The officer asks to see the vote record. Rebecca says it is in the minutes and she does not have them with her. The officer turns to the tow driver and asks if he has verification that the vehicle is on HOA common area. The driver says he just has the authorization from Rebecca. The officer shakes his head. He tells the driver he cannot proceed with the tow without clear documentation, and he advises me to contact an attorney to resolve the property dispute. Then he leaves. Rebecca is shaking with rage. She tells the driver she will find another company that actually does their job. The driver shrugs and drives away. Rebecca turns to me. She says I just made a very big mistake and I will regret this. Then she walks off, phone already at her ear again. Marcus shows up 2 minutes later. He sees my face and immediately asks if I am okay. I tell him what happened. He says that is harassment and we need to escalate this now. He suggests I contact an attorney who specializes in HOA law and file a formal complaint with the management company documenting everything. He also says we should request the call logs from the tow companies to see how many times Rebecca has contacted them, because if she is doing this repeatedly, it could show a pattern. That night, I draft a detailed complaint to the management company. I attach every photo, every email, every notice I have received. I describe the 2 tow attempts, the police interaction, and the lack of response to my records request. I request an immediate review by the board and a suspension of all enforcement actions against my property until the dispute is resolved. I send it certified email with read receipt. Then I start researching attorneys. The next morning, I get a response from the management company. It is from someone I have not heard from before, the property manager. She says she has reviewed my complaint and she is scheduling a meeting with the board to discuss the matter. She asks if I can attend a call on Friday. I say yes. She also says she is temporarily halting any tow authorizations related to my property until the issue is resolved. I feel a tiny bit of hope. Then, 2 hours later, Rebecca sends an email to the entire neighborhood via the HOA blast system. The subject line is reminder about parking violations. The email does not name me, but it describes my situation in detail, calling me a resident who is refusing to comply with board directives and threatening legal action to avoid accountability. She says the board takes violations seriously and will pursue all available remedies, including liens and legal action. The email ends with a reminder that residents who do not follow the rules create problems for everyone. I am livid. Marcus reads it and says that is defamation and it could be evidence of retaliation. He tells me to save the email and add it to my documentation. Friday comes and I join the call with the property manager and 2 board members, Rebecca and Tom. The property manager starts by summarizing my complaint. Rebecca immediately interrupts. She says I am a problem resident who has been hostile and uncooperative from day one. She says the board has clear authority to enforce parking rules and my driveway was identified as common area during a recent survey. I ask her to show me the survey. She says it is not finalized yet. Tom jumps in. He says he does not recall any board vote on reclassifying driveways, and he would like to see the documentation before the board proceeds further. Rebecca shoots him a look. The property manager says she will request the survey and the meeting minutes, and we will reconvene once she has reviewed them. The call ends. I feel like I am in quicksand, moving but getting nowhere. Over the next week, things get worse. Rebecca starts calling different tow drivers like she is speed dialing chaos. I get 3 more calls from tow companies, all saying they have authorization to tow my car. Each time I explain the situation and they back off, but it is exhausting. I am losing sleep, missing shifts at work, and constantly checking my phone. Marcus tells me this is escalating into harassment and I need to act fast. He connects me with an attorney named Lisa Chen who handles HOA disputes. I send her everything I have. She reviews it over a weekend and calls me Monday morning. She says I have a strong case for harassment and selective enforcement, and if Rebecca is authorizing tows without proper board approval, the HOA could be liable for conversion. She offers to send a demand letter to the board on my behalf, requesting an immediate stop to all enforcement actions and a formal review of the driveway classification. I agree. She drafts the letter and sends it that day. 2 days later, I get another red-stamped final notice envelope. This time it is an attempt to file a lien packet. The packet includes a bogus ledger showing over $3,000 in fines, late fees, and administrative costs. The line items are vague. Parking violation, failure to comply, administrative processing, legal review. There is no breakdown, no receipts, no proof. I take pictures and send them to Lisa and Marcus immediately. Lisa calls me within an hour. She is angry. She says this is retaliation and the line items look fabricated. She tells me she is filing a formal complaint with the state and requesting an emergency hearing to stop the lien. Marcus looks at the ledger and says the numbers do not add up. He points out that some of the fees are dated before I even received the first violation notice. He says this is fraudulent billing and I should report it to the management company and possibly the state attorney general. I feel like I am drowning in paperwork and threats, but I also feel something else. Anger, the kind that sharpens your focus. That night, I go through every document I have. I organize everything into a timeline. Dates, emails, notices, photos, call logs. I see the pattern. Rebecca escalated immediately after I questioned her authority. She ignored the record's request. She authorized multiple tow attempts without board approval. She sent the defamatory email. She filed a lien packet with fake fees. It is not random. It is targeted. And then I remember something Tom said at the meeting. He did not vote for any driveway reclassification. If Rebecca is acting without board authority, then every action she has taken is invalid. I need proof. I text Tom and ask if he would be willing to provide a statement describing what he knows about Rebecca's actions. He does not respond immediately. I wait. The next day, I get a message from Tom. He says he cannot provide a statement without risking his position on the board, but he knows someone who might be able to help. A former board member named Janet who served with Rebecca 2 years ago and resigned after a dispute. Tom gives me her contact info. I reach out to Janet that night. She agrees to meet me at a coffee shop the next morning. When I sit down with her, she does not waste time. She tells me Rebecca has a pattern. She uses her role as communications director to control the narrative and shut down anyone who questions her. Janet says Rebecca pushed through several enforcement actions during her tenure without proper board votes, and when Janet objected, Rebecca launched a smear campaign against her in the neighborhood group chat. Janet eventually resigned because it was not worth the stress. She says she has kept copies of emails and meeting notes from that time, and if they help my case, I am welcome to them. I ask her if she would be willing to provide a certified statement. She hesitates, then nods. She says she has been waiting for someone to stand up to Rebecca, and she will do it. Over the next few days, Janet and I work together to compile a certified statement. It describes Rebecca's pattern of acting without board authority, targeting residents who challenge her, and using her communications role to silence dissent. Janet includes specific examples from her time on the board, including emails where Rebecca authorized enforcement actions before board meetings and then presented them as already decided. Lisa reviews the statement and says it is exactly what we need. She tells me to hold on to it and deploy it at the right moment, because once Rebecca knows it exists, she will try to discredit it. I agree. I did not stop her, because I wanted her on record. The emergency hearing is scheduled for the following week. Lisa tells me to bring every document, every photo, every piece of evidence I have. She also tells me to bring Marcus and Janet if they are willing to attend. Marcus says he will be there. Janet agrees to come and present her statement if needed. The night before the hearing, I barely sleep. I keep running through everything in my head. The timeline, the documents, the trump card. The next morning, I meet Lisa, Marcus, and Janet outside the hearing room. It is a small office in a municipal building. The board is already there. Rebecca, Tom, and the third board member whose name I have never caught. The property manager is also present, along with a man in a suit who I assume is the board attorney. We sit down. The hearing officer, a neutral mediator assigned by the state, opens the session and asks me to present my case. I start with the timeline. I explain that I moved in 6 months ago, bought the property with a clear plat map showing the driveway as part of my lot, and received no notice of any reclassification until Rebecca showed up with a violation sticker. I describe the 2 tow attempts, the police interaction, the defamatory email, and the fraudulent lien packet. I show photos, emails, and the bogus ledger. I point out that the line items do not match any legitimate charges, and some are dated before I received any notice. The hearing officer takes notes. Then Rebecca speaks. She says I am a difficult resident who has refused to cooperate with board directives and that the driveway reclassification was approved during a board meeting in executive session. I ask her to provide the minutes. She says executive session minutes are confidential. Lisa jumps in. She says executive sessions are only for specific matters like personnel and legal strategy, and a property reclassification does not qualify. She demands that the board produce the minutes or admit that no vote occurred. The board attorney looks uncomfortable. He says he will need to review the matter and provide a response. Then Tom speaks up. He says he was present at every board meeting for the past year, and he does not recall any vote to reclassify driveways. Rebecca glares at him. Tom does not back down. He says he has concerns about whether proper procedures were followed, and he believes the board should suspend enforcement until the matter is fully investigated. The hearing officer asks if anyone else has information to present. I look at Marcus. He nods. I hand copies of Janet's certified statement to Lisa first. Then we present them together so Rebecca cannot isolate me. Lisa distributes copies to the hearing officer, the board, and the property manager. Rebecca's face goes white as she reads it. The statement lays out everything. Rebecca's history of acting without board approval, her pattern of targeting dissenters, her use of the communications role to control information. Janet includes email evidence showing Rebecca authorized enforcement actions unilaterally and then pressured the board to ratify them after the fact. The hearing officer reads it carefully. Then he asks Rebecca if she has a response. Rebecca says the statement is biased and Janet has a personal vendetta. Janet, who has been sitting quietly, speaks for the first time. She says she resigned to avoid further conflict, but she kept the records because she knew Rebecca would do this to someone else eventually. She offers to provide the original emails if needed. The hearing officer says that will not be necessary at this time, but he will be recommending a full investigation into the board's enforcement practices. Then I play my final card. I pull out the tow yard claim ticket from the first tow attempt. The ticket is stamped with the date, time, and the name of the tow company. I also have the call log that Marcus helped me request from the company under a public records angle, showing that Rebecca called them 6 times in 1 week. I show the hearing officer the pattern. Rebecca did not just authorize 1 tow. She has been calling different tow companies repeatedly, trying to find one that would proceed without verification. Lisa points out that this suggests a relationship between Rebecca and the tow vendors, and she requests that the board investigate whether Rebecca has any financial interest in the towing contracts. The board attorney looks like he wants to disappear. He says he will review the matter and report back to the board. The hearing officer says he has heard enough. He suspends all enforcement actions against my property pending a full investigation and orders the board to provide a complete accounting of all fees and charges. He also recommends that the board consider whether Rebecca should remain in her position given the evidence of unilateral actions and possible conflicts of interest. Rebecca stands up abruptly. Her phone rings. She looks at the screen and her face goes red. She answers it. Within seconds, she is yelling. I can hear the person on the other end, a woman, saying something about authorization limits and liability. Rebecca snaps back that she has full authority and she does not need permission. The woman says the contract is under review and they are pulling all pending authorizations. Rebecca hangs up, her phone dies mid-rant, and she freezes in place. It is the most perfectly timed karma beat I have ever seen. Everyone in the room stares at her. The hearing officer clears his throat and says the session is concluded. Rebecca grabs her things and leaves without another word. After the hearing, Marcus, Janet, Lisa, and I stand in the hallway. Marcus is grinning. He says that phone moment was priceless. Janet says she is glad she kept those records. Lisa says we are not done yet, but this is a huge step. She tells me the board will likely settle rather than risk a full investigation, and she will push for avoiding of all fees, a formal apology, and policy changes to prevent this from happening again. I thank everyone. I feel lighter than I have in weeks. Over the next 2 weeks, things move fast. The management company launches an internal review. They discover that Rebecca authorized over 40 tow calls in a 6-month period, most of them targeting the same handful of residents. They also find that she has been receiving referral fees from one of the tow companies, a clear conflict of interest. The board votes to terminate her position as communications director effective immediately. An attorney letter forces the HOA to void the entire enforcement waive, and residents vote Rebecca out at the next election. The complaint to the management company that triggered discipline becomes part of the investigation record, and the management company implements new policies requiring board approval for all enforcement actions. Karen's complaint is ruled unfounded with evidence cited, and the board adopts an enforcement checklist that limits Karen tactics going forward. The fraudulent lien packet is withdrawn and my account is cleared. I get a formal apology letter from the board. Tom, who is still on the board, personally calls me to apologize for not acting sooner. He says he should have stood up to Rebecca months ago, but he was worried about retaliation. I tell him I understand and I appreciate his support during the hearing. He says the board is committed to rebuilding trust with residents and ensuring that enforcement is fair and transparent. I believe him. A month later, I am sitting in my driveway, same spot where this all started. My car is parked exactly where it has always been. No orange stickers, no tow trucks, no red stamped final notice envelopes. I get a text from Marcus. He says he heard Rebecca moved out of the neighborhood entirely. I do not know if that is true, but I do not care. She is gone from the board, and that is enough. Janet texts me to check in. She says she is glad someone finally stood up to Rebecca, and she hopes the neighborhood will be better for it. I think it will be. I go back to work, back to tracking inventory and timestamps, and for the first time in months, I feel like I can breathe. The HOA is not perfect, but it is functional now. The new communications director sends polite, informative emails instead of threatening blasts. The board meetings are calmer. Residents are starting to trust the process again. I even see a few people parking in their driveways without fear. It is a small victory, but it is mine. Looking back, I realize the whole nightmare could have been avoided if Rebecca had just followed the rules she claimed to enforce. But she did not. She used her position to bully and intimidate, and she got away with it for years because no one had the time or resources to fight back. I got lucky. I had Marcus to help me spot the red flags. I had Janet to provide the evidence. I had Lisa to navigate the legal process. And I had the rideshare driver who rolled his eyes at exactly the right moment. Without them, I would have lost my car, my money, and maybe my home. The lesson I learned is simple. Document everything. Do not assume the HOA is acting in good faith. Do not wait for them to fix the problem. And do not be afraid to fight back. because sometimes the system only works when you force it to. Rebecca thought she was untouchable. She thought her committee and her clipboard and her handheld scanner gave her power. But power without accountability is just bullying, and bullies do not win when you call their bluff. I still live in Redwood Landing. I still see Tom at board meetings occasionally. He is working hard to rebuild the board's reputation, and I respect that. I do not see Rebecca anymore. I heard she is threatening to sue the HOA for wrongful termination, but I do not think it will go anywhere. The evidence against her is overwhelming, and the board has already settled with the other residents she targeted. I got a small settlement check last month. It covered the attorney fees and then some. I used part of it to buy a dash cam for my car and a security camera for my front door. I am not taking any chances. The neighborhood feels different now. People talk to each other more. There is a new sense of solidarity, like we all survived something together. A few residents have approached me to say thank you for standing up to Rebecca. One woman told me she was on the verge of moving out because of the harassment, but now she feels like she can stay. That makes me feel good. I did not do this for recognition. I did it because I had no other choice. But if my fight helped other people, then it was worth it. I do not know what the future holds for Redwood Landing HOA. I hope the new board follows through on their promises. I hope the residents stay engaged and hold them accountable. And I hope no one else has to go through what I went through. But if they do, I hope they know that fighting back is possible. It is hard, it is exhausting, and it is unfair that you have to do it at all. But it is possible. And sometimes that is enough. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.